What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we return with Jennifer of Beyond the Black. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, anytime, anytime. It's so great to be able to talk with you again. Last time I spoke to you, it was to promote Horizons, which was brand new at the time in 2020. But now we got this brand new self-titled album out. It is absolutely epic. I've noticed that whenever a band puts out a self-titled album in the middle of their career, it usually does signify some sort of change within the band's direction or in their career in a way. Is that what this album is sort of meant to do?
I would not say it's more change in our career or musically wise or something. I think it's more like that we found ourselves. And if you're thinking about the beginning of Beyond the Black, I was 18 when we started. So a lot of stuff happened, and I think that in the beginning, we just did what felt right. But I think that this album feels much more confident and sounds much more confident as well as every album before.
Definitely. I've noticed such an evolution between Songs of Love and Death to now. In a way, with every album that Beyond the Black has created, was there always like a preconceived vision? Like even for the self-titled, was there sort of like an idea that revolved around the whole album, or was it a very improvisational and very experimental process?
Um, for me, you know that we started writing this album after releasing Horizons. So, Horizons, because we spoke before about this album, you know that this was a very experimental album. So, writing with a lot of different people, also we had like three producer teams. We tried things out and wanted to, yeah, experience a lot of different stuff so that we know after that what we want and what not. Some kind of if if I'm releasing or we're releasing the album now, the new album now, and now I know, okay, it was a process. The Horizons was meant to be something where we can learn a lot. So yeah, for this album, we had a lot of time in the beginning to really think about, okay, what have we learned and what Beyond the Black is and what do we want to talk about and all of that stuff. We always try to do that before every album, but this time in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't really had a lot of stuff that it was, yeah, getting our attention more, like promotion or something. So yeah, this time we really had time to go really intense and before writing songs and recording and all of that stuff. So we knew exactly what we wanted before we started with anything. And that is the main difference to Horizons. Horizons was more like finding out during the process, and now we knew before we started.
I've always said that this self-titled album is almost kind of like, in a way, the results of what we heard off of Horizons and the constant isolation and unrest and uncertainty that was released surrounding it. And I noticed that with tracks such as like Free Me, for example, or Raise Your Head or Not in Our Name, it seems like there's a real defining element behind this. In terms of the emotions that were felt in this through the recording of this album, was there a lot of different personal emotions that you were expressing through this album, or was there maybe like a lot of external sources of inspiration that you channeled into the lyricism and the voice?
It's always both of it, but I think that this time, um, I really felt a connection to everyone that I knew and what I've heard from outside. A lot of thoughts that I had for myself that everyone around me had as well. So, like thinking about these questions that we had for the band in a personal life as well, like, okay, where am I right now, and is what I'm doing now really what I want, and all of that stuff, and all the we are also talking about being alone or with your thoughts, and I think that all of this what we we're talking about was inspired by these emotions that we had during this time. Like, yeah, when the world is going crazy, because the world is going crazy right now,
Yeah.
and always was. And yeah, and then you can really feel it, or we could really feel it during that time. Um, the only thing that was different for me was that I knew that other people are feeling that too, you
Definitely.
know, at the
100%.
same time.
Yeah, there's the famous saying, I've always thought that for a lot of, there's the famous saying that when we are at our worst, art is at our best. And
Mm-hmm.
and it is an unfortunate duality, like I can't agree more, but like when an artist writes a song about personal tragedy or traumas and stuff, it can be difficult for a listener who didn't go through that exact same experience to maybe resonate. So I've noticed that with every album that addressed the suffering that we had the last couple of years, it almost seems like listeners are more at one with the art that they listen to.
Yeah, of course. And I think no one really, or not no one, but this album was not meant to be talking about the pandemic
Of
because we
course.
had enough of that. But of course, you were influenced by every emotion that you had during that process. So I think that is the main thing that maybe you can find on every album that is releasing right now.
Of course, of course. And you couldn't be more right. Like, everybody's talking about the pandemic now. It's going to be, it's definitely good subject matter. It's definitely the giving tree for inspiration. But, everybody was feeling something at that time. And any artist who tells you, I'm not influenced by the outside world and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
influenced by what's going on, it only comes from within, I think is a lie. The world is going to influence you
Mm,
one way or another.
of course.
Now, being that Beyond the Black is a band that work with multiple members, though, does everybody have to be feeling the same way in order to write a specific song, or could maybe everybody feeling somewhat differently add to the sound a little bit and add more like diversity and contrast?
That's a good question, but I think that you always can find a meaning for yourself in a song that Beyond the Black is. So every song can be very personal, even if it's not the same, yeah, the same exact theme that it was meant to be when we were writing it. So I think it's the same with we have like two main writers. It's Chris, my guitarist, and me, and our producers. And the other two in our band are more like the fresh ears. So, and that is very good to have. But I know that they are very, I know they're very emotional and they can feel it. And empathy is a very, very high thing in every one of us. So if they would say, ah, that theme I don't want to talk about or I don't feel comfortable with, I would consider that, of course. But it was never really the case. Um, so no, I think it's totally fine that the singer, of course, should maybe yeah, be interested in what we're singing about.
Of course.
But I think yeah, the emotion itself, everyone can really feel that in our band.
Definitely. And I can tell you that all your listeners could feel it too. But when you
Mm-hmm.
look back at the Beyond the Black journey in the catalog, when we listen to Lost in Forever or Heart of the Hurricane, etc., like when you revisit those songs, does it put you back in the mindset of who you were in 2018 or 2016 in a way? Or do you maybe approach these songs or think of these songs in a different way now as opposed to back then?
You mean like um, if it means something else to
Yeah.
me, other songs before?
Yeah.
Uh that's oh, great question.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, because when you're on stage singing old songs, most of the time you're more connecting with the people in front of the stage than thinking about the song itself, you know?
Of course.
So it's funny, I never really thought about, okay, am I still feeling the same way about this song? Because, yeah, of course, there was one song that is called I Won't Surrender on Horizons. And I know that I was in a totally different mood when I was writing it. And now I'm more like super stable when I'm thinking about it. And maybe that's a difference when I'm listening to it right now. But I can still feel the emotion when when I'm thinking about the creative way or creating the song. I think it's not really a distance there. You know what I mean?
100%. But when it came to the emotion that started that idea, when it came to the emotion that started your song idea, did you have to seek out the emotion? Do you almost look for the inspiration? Or do you kind of have to let it hit you when you least expect it?
Mm. Um, it's more like hitting.
Mm,
Because you have to feel it to know what to talk about, you know?
definitely.
So you have to have the pictures in your head and all of that stuff to really, yeah. And of course you're sometimes you're crying while you're doing it. So yeah, sometimes you need to let it out.
Yeah, no pain, no game, right?
That's
But
right.
if you're working on a song for a long period of time, sometimes you have to set a song aside and come back to it another time or revisit
Mhm.
stuff. So, do you find it maybe like the longer you work on something, the harder it is to sort of maintain the emotion that initially sparked it?
Sometimes it's like that, but it can be good as well if you have like this, ah, this we should do with this song. Okay, now it's running, you know? Sometimes if you leave it like, I don't know, 3, 4 months or more, yeah, it's easier to go back and really have a new view on the emotion on the song itself, and then yeah, it's better. Sometimes you still you're struggling with, okay, where to go with the song, and sometimes you leave the whole song then maybe, but yeah, most of the time I think it's easier to go further with the song.
Do you feel like I've always said that emotions are in a way like it is when you use them as your source of inspiration, it is like a mad scientist experiment, and you're always afraid it could sometimes be a little too much to handle. Do you almost feel like that there's an art to controlling your emotions when you're in that vocal booth and you're recording it, that it is something you kind of have to like maybe hold back a little bit, or be a little bit more conscious of?
um I always let go. I try to go deeper and deeper and deeper instead. So this is what I want, because I think that always I try to really show the people the emotion in my voice, you know? So this is what I love the most on recordings, being in that vocal booth and trying to really, yeah, transport this emotion to the people out there. You know, when you're recording vocals, um, it's a big difference if you're singing it live and singing it in a vocal booth. Because in the vocal booth, you sometimes it's weird because you cannot really hear the emotions that much than in when you're singing it live, because of course you can see something and you can see the body who's or the face that is singing it as well. So but when you're in the vocal booth, you need to go over the the small emotion, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So that you really can hear that someone is shortly before crying or something.
Yeah.
You need to be very deep in this emotion to really hear
Yeah,
it.
especially because
Yeah.
you're in the vocal booth in a studio and it's such like a
Mhm.
controlled environment, and like it seems like
Yeah.
when you're in that vocal booth you're able to kind of like change your reality a little bit, right? And change the
Mhm.
dimensions. Do you almost see different visions or see certain colors when singing?
Yeah, I love to have a dark vocal booth. Like yeah, being more in my mind and my body. So this is what I love the most, not having a super bright light or something, and this is helping me to really, yeah, see more like a fantasy world around me than the vocal booth.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think every singer I spoke about is not like, oh, when I'm in the vocal booth, I just like to, I love the vision of this dark, claustrophobic
Yeah.
room with a microphone there. That's all I'm thinking about all day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. But writing lyrics is a very different art, I would say, than being able to than singing the song in itself. Do you need a
Mhm.
similar atmosphere when you're writing lyrics as to when you're recording vocals, or do you think that maybe lyrically you need to be in a completely different headspace or be in a different element writing lyrics as opposed to singing them?
Mm, it's quite the same when I'm thinking about lyrics. Eh, there's no difference if I'm writing harmonies and thinking about lyrics for a song, because I'm in my room and I have my creative space there, and I'm more, yeah, more in this fantasy world than I'm in the reality, and I can create that in that room. So what I could not do maybe is to be in a public space or something, because it's distracting me too much, you know. But being quiet in the room and thinking about it, I think that is the best way for me to really go deep into emotions.
Yeah, isolation is a very great source for
Yeah,
creativity, right? I've
yeah,
always said that that's going
yeah.
to be one of the. Now that we're 3 years since the lockdown happened, we're now starting to see the results of everything that's been happening since then, and I could definitely say that some of the art we've been getting was most certainly worth it, including this new album.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when you are feeling this inspiration though, and when you're like putting yourself into this sort of fantasy world, are you thinking of like different elements that you've experienced in the past in a way, like your favorite sort of fantasy characters or your sort of environments, or does the vision come as you're more alone in isolation in a way, and it sort of develops more and more?
That is not always the same, but for me, most of the time, I'm inspired by playing something on the piano, you know, so I am already in a mood, and this is inspiring me thinking about what theme could that be, you know. So and most of all, I think I'm coming from the side, okay, what thing I want to talk about to the people that are listening to our music. It's kind of different, but difficult. It's what is the message I want to give them, what I've learned for myself somehow, you know. When I was thinking about, okay, I was learning for myself a lot during the pandemic. So I think I never learned more in such a short time. So for me, it was important to yeah, really get some things or grab some things that yeah, where I was thinking about. It's not easy to get these yeah, these things that we talked about, but I thought a lot about that during that time, and also about standing up for myself. And these were the things that inspired me the most to tell the okay, there are dark times out there, and everyone in his whole life has dark times. So it's always important to have some kind of hope that even if it's just that somebody else is thinking the same or feeling the same or something. So yeah, this was the main thing I always thought about when I was creative. I don't know the question anymore but
You
I hope
answered
that was
you answered
was
it.
an answer.
You gave me a perfect answer, and I couldn't agree with you more, because like when I listen to this album, to me that's the message of it. Like there are good times and there are bad times, and the benefit of life is that it can always get better, but you do have to have the drive to make it so. It ain't gonna, life isn't gonna get better on its own. It is one of those things you have to
Yeah.
drive to make better. Life, it seems like life can only get worse on its own without any, assistance guiding it, but life can only get better with the willpower to do so. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. Very good. Thank you so much.
of course, of course. And the final question I had for you is that you express yourself in multiple ways through not just your lyrics and your voice, but you are a multi instrumentalist, as you mentioned, with piano, and you've also played guitar. Music is a language in itself, and we express ourselves in many aspects of the world through music. Does every instrument that you know how to play, is it a different form of self-expression? Is it a different means of expressing who you are, or is it all very much the same?
It's definitely not the same. I know I have some kind of the same feelings sometimes, or I can express the same, but there are always ways that are different to playing piano or playing cello or playing, yeah, guitar, saxophone. I play a lot of stuff because this is also the reason why I decided to do symphonic metal, because I could express so many different emotions that I have inside of me, like really powerful, really sad ballads, like metalheads are crying as well sometimes.
Yeah.
So these things, and I think that that is something that I had since I was super young. I always wanted to express in different ways, and I think you're right. I think that this is really, yeah, not the same to play cello or piano or all these stuff that I mentioned before.
Yeah, and you're right. Like I think with any genre of metal, symphonic elements are almost like butter. It goes with anything. Like you see how Flesh God Apocalypse and Lorna Shore are bringing symphonic elements. You see how black metal brings symphonic elements. Like I'm just waiting to get like a Limp Bizkit symphonic band, and then every genre has incorporated in it.
Mm. That's good.
Are you
But
think?
let's get to one.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we can find something like this very soon. It's a good idea.
Get that Fred Durst collaboration on there.
Yeah.
You will be the most talked about
With
metal
that.
band for years, so it may be worth it.
Would be great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. We'll talk. Korn did collaborate with Evanescence, so it is possible. Mm.
So, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We'll see.
Never know. Never say never. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such an awesome conversation. Is there just anything else with Beyond the Black that you would like to promote for this self-titled album in terms of tours or anything else that you would like to promote? Maybe hopefully a US tour in the near future?
That would be amazing. We always wanted to come over, but sometimes you need to have the right thing, so the right chance. But if we have the chance, we come over. Be sure. But at the moment, yeah, we just released the album, and Yeah, we will do some festival shows in summer, of course. We will do a tour in the end of the year, but it will be more European. But hopefully, yeah, we'll get the chance to go to US. And I just always want to say thanks so much for your interest and also for the support. And this means a lot to us because, of course, the past years were horrible for every band out there. So support is very needed, and we're very thankful for everything. So yeah, we hope to see all the guys on the road sometimes.
Well, thank you for your music that supported us through these difficult times. Horizons, for a lot of people, is the soundtrack or the album they're going to be thinking about when we reflect on those very dark times. So that album has a historical place in our hearts. So thank you for your support.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Everybody, we are here with Beyond the Black, their self titled album out now on Nuclear Blast. Be sure to pick that up. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.